Please, I need to get home. My girls aren't feeling well," Elena pleaded, her voice raw with desperation as she struggled futilmente with the stubborn lug nuts of her flat tire. 3 little voices from the back seat whimpered, echoing her urgency. A sleek, expensive car pulled over, and David, a millionaire in a tailored suit, stepped out. He felt an odd pull to help, something he rarely did. As he efficiently changed the tire, Elena watched him, a storm brewing in her eyes. "You don't remember me, do you?" she asked, her voice cutting through the quiet. The words hit him like a physical blow. He vaguely recalled a scared, thin girl from his past, but this strong, beautiful woman, now a mother of 3 identical little girls, was a ghost he never expected to see. But before we see how his 3 secret daughters turn his entire life upside down, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now subscribe to the channel, and let's get into the full story. "Is that smoke coming from your engine?" David Reynolds asked, lowering the window of his BMW X7 as he pulled up beside the stranded Toyota Corolla on Interstate 95. The woman kneeling beside her flat tire looked up, squinting against the July sun. "No, just a flat. We're fine." David checked his watch, written in full letters, not numbers, and calculated the time. 20 minutes to his meeting. He should keep driving. The $50 million deal wouldn't close itself. But something made him pull over anyway. The afternoon heat pressed down on David's shoulders as he stepped out of his air-conditioned luxury vehicle. His tailored suit felt suddenly inappropriate as sweat immediately began forming along his collar. He approached the Toyota, noticing movement in the back seat, children shifting uncomfortably in the heat. "Let me help," he said, rolling up his sleeves. "You have a spare?" The woman nodded, wiping sweat from her forehead. "In the trunk." "Thank you." As David retrieved the spare tire, he glanced into the back seat. 3 identical faces stared back at him, girls about 9 years old, all with the same dark eyes and long black hair tied in similar ponytails. Triplets. They fanned themselves with folded papers. "Hot day to be stuck on the highway," David said, trying to sound friendly. "We were supposed to be at swimming lessons," one of the girls said. "Sophia, let the man work," the woman said gently. David positioned the jack under the car. "I'm David, by the way." "Elena," the woman replied simply. David worked efficiently, removing the flat tire and replacing it with the spare. His mind kept drifting to his meeting, the PowerPoint presentation waiting on his laptop, the investors expecting his pitch, his business partner Marcus probably already texting him about his whereabouts. As he tightened the last lug nut, Elena handed him a bottle of water. "Thank you." Most people would have driven past. David took a long drink. "I almost did. Honesty, that's refreshing." She studied his face. "Don't you remember me, David?" Her voice suddenly connected with something in his memory. David looked up from the tire, really seeing her face for the first time. The woman's features came into focus, the same dark eyes as the girls, a face that had matured but remained familiar. "Elena," he repeated, this time with recognition. "Elena Martinez. Harvard Business School. 10 years ago." Her voice remained calm, but her eyes held something harder. David stood slowly, memories flooding back. Elena had been his girlfriend during his 2nd year at Harvard. They had dated for almost 8 months until she told him she was pregnant. He had walked away, choosing his career over impending fatherhood. He had never looked back. Words failed him as his eyes moved to the car window, where the 3 girls watched with curious expressions. "Yes," Elena said, answering his unspoken question. "They're yours." Triplets. Sophia, Olivia, and Emma. David felt the ground shift beneath him. "Triplets? But when you told me, you didn't say—" "I didn't know then. Found out later, after you stopped returning my calls." His phone buzzed in his pocket, likely Marcus wondering where he was. For the first time in his professional life, David didn't immediately reach for it. "How old are they?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. 9 years and 4 months. One of the girls rolled down her window. "Mom, we're really hot. Can we go now?" "Just a minute, Emma," Elena said, her eyes never leaving David's face. David stared at the girls, at his daughters, 3 faces he had never seen before today, 3 lives he had chosen not to be part of. The smallest one, Emma, held an inhaler in her hand. She looked slightly pale compared to her sisters. "I want to—" David started but wasn't sure how to finish. Elena's expression softened slightly. "We need to go. Emma's asthma gets worse in this heat. Can I see them again?" The words came out before David could consider them. Elena hesitated. "I don't know if that's a good idea." "Please." The desperation in his voice surprised even him. After a long moment, Elena opened her purse and wrote something on a slip of paper. "My number. But listen to me carefully, David. I expect nothing from you. We've managed for 9 years without you. Don't come into their lives unless you plan to stay." She handed him the paper, then walked to the driver's side door. "Wait," David said. Are they okay? Healthy? Happy?" Elena paused. "They're wonderful, smart, talented, kind. Everything you missed." There was no cruelty in her voice, just simple fact. "Emma has asthma, severe sometimes. Sophia is our athlete. Olivia plays piano beautifully." She looked at him directly. "You should be proud of them. I certainly am." His phone buzzed again, more insistently this time. "Your life is calling," Elena said. "Thank you for changing the tire." David watched as Elena got into the car. The 3 girls, his daughters, stared at him through the windows as the Toyota pulled away. The smallest one, Emma, waved hesitantly. He raised his hand in response, too stunned to do more. Standing alone on the highway shoulder, David felt something crack inside him. His phone continued to buzz. The meeting, the deal, the partnership, his empire. None of it seemed important as he watched the taillights of Elena's car disappear around the bend. He looked at the paper in his hand. 10 digits that connected him to 3 lives he had never known existed. David walked back to his BMW in a daze. The interior felt colder than before, the leather seats emptier. His phone showed 15 missed calls from Marcus. He started the engine but didn't pull back onto the highway immediately. Instead, he sat staring through the windshield, seeing not the road ahead, but the 3 identical faces that had just turned his carefully constructed world upside down. Triplets. He had 3 daughters. He had daughters with asthma and soccer games and piano recitals. He had missed first steps and first words and first days of school. He had missed 9 years and 4 months of their lives because he had chosen his ambition over everything else. David finally pulled his car back onto the highway, driving toward Boston on autopilot. He was now very late for his meeting, but his mind was 20 miles behind him, with a woman he had abandoned and 3 girls who shared his DNA. As he approached the city skyline, David's phone rang again. This time he answered. "Where the hell are you?" Marcus demanded. "Everyone's waiting." "I'm coming," David said, his voice distant even to his own ears. Something happened. "Well, unhappen it and get here," Marcus snapped before ending the call. David drove toward downtown Boston, toward the glass tower that housed Reynolds Tech Solutions, toward the waiting investors and the $50 million deal that had seemed so crucial this morning. But all he could see were 3 identical faces staring at him through a car window. All he could hear was Elena's voice. "Don't come into their lives unless you plan to stay." As David pulled into his reserved parking space, he took one last look at the phone number on the slip of paper before carefully tucking it into his wallet. The most important meeting of his career was waiting upstairs. David straightened his tie, grabbed his laptop, and headed for the elevator. But the confident CEO who had left this building 2 hours ago was gone. In his place stood a man who had just discovered that success might be the least important thing he had been pursuing all these years. David parked his car in the underground garage of the Reynolds Tech Solutions building. His fingers tapped nervously against the steering wheel as his phone rang for the 16th time. He finally answered. "David, where are you?" "Everyone is waiting in the conference room," Marcus Blackwell said, his voice sharp with frustration. "I'm in the parking garage. I'll be up in 2 minutes," David replied, his mind still filled with images of 3 identical faces. The elevator ride to the 28th floor felt longer than usual. David tried to focus on the presentation he had prepared, but all he could think about was Elena and the daughters he never knew existed. When the doors opened, Marcus was waiting, arms crossed. "What happened to you?" "You've never been late for a meeting before." "I had to help someone with a flat tire," David said, walking toward the conference room. "A flat tire?" "You could have called roadside assistance for them," Marcus said, following closely behind. David paused at the conference room door. "It was more complicated than that. I'll explain later." The meeting was a disaster. David stumbled through his presentation, missed key points, and couldn't answer basic questions from investors. When they finally left, Marcus closed the door and turned to face him. "What is going on with you?" "You just fumbled a $50 million deal." David sat heavily in one of the leather chairs. "I met someone today, a woman I knew 10 years ago at Harvard." "An old girlfriend? That's what this is about?" Marcus laughed without humor. "She had my children, Marcus. 3 of them, triplet girls." Marcus's smile disappeared. "What? When did this happen?" 10 years ago. I left when she told me she was pregnant. I didn't know there were 3 babies. I didn't know anything until today when I stopped to help her change a tire on the highway." Marcus poured 2 glasses of water from the pitcher on the table and handed one to David. "Are you sure they're yours?" "They're 9 years old. The timing fits, and they look—" David paused. "They have my mother's eyes." Over the next 2 weeks, David tried to work normally, but his mind constantly wandered to Elena and the girls. He drafted text messages to her, but deleted them without sending. During meetings, he found himself sketching 3 small stick figures in his notebook. Late one night, alone in his penthouse apartment, David searched Elena's name online. He found her LinkedIn profile showing she had dropped out of nursing school in her final year. Her current employment listed 3 jobs: morning shifts at a coffee shop, afternoon administrative work at a medical office, and weekend waitressing at a diner. Her Facebook page was mostly private, but he could see a few public photos of the girls at a school science fair. The smallest one, Emma, stood proudly beside a display about the solar system. "How could I not know about them for 9 years?" David whispered to the empty room. The next day, after missing important information during a board meeting, Marcus confronted him in his office. "This has to stop, David. You're not sleeping, you're distracted, and investors are starting to notice. What's going on with this situation?" David looked up from his computer. "I can't stop thinking about them, Marcus. I've tried contacting Elena, but I keep deleting the messages. I don't know what to say." Marcus sat on the edge of the desk. "Look, there's a simple solution here. Pay the child support, set up college funds, handle it financially, and move on. That's what successful men do." "Is that really what I should do? Just throw money at them? They've survived 9 years without you. The mother obviously has things under control. Don't derail everything you've worked for over sudden guilt." That evening, as David sat staring at Elena's number again, his phone rang. When he saw her name on the screen, his heart jumped. He answered immediately. "Elena?" "Hello, David." Her voice sounded tired. "I didn't expect to call you, but I need to ask for something." "Anything," he said too quickly. A pause. "It's Emma. She needs specialized asthma medication that our insurance won't fully cover. It's $700. I wouldn't ask, but—" "I'll transfer the money right now," David interrupted. "Just tell me where to send it." "Thank you," Elena said quietly. "I can pay you back in installments." "No, don't worry about that. Please, it's the least I can do." David hesitated. Elena, can I ask you something? Go ahead. Would it be possible for me to meet the girls? Properly, I mean, not just by the side of the road. The silence stretched so long, David thought she might have hung up. Emma needs that medication by Friday, she finally said. If you can meet us at Walden Park at 2 o'clock on Saturday afternoon, we can talk more. The girls know someone helped us with the tire, but they don't know who you are yet. I'll be there, David promised, and I'll transfer the money tonight. After they hung up, David immediately sent the money for Emma's medication. Then he did something he'd never done before. He canceled his weekend business meetings. For the first time since founding Reynolds Tech, something felt more important than work. On Saturday morning, David stood in a toy store, completely lost. What did 9-year-old girls like? He finally selected 3 identical dolls, thinking it was safest to get the same gift for each girl. As he drove to Walden Park, David rehearsed what he might say. How do you explain to children that you're their father, but you've been absent for their entire lives? By the time he parked his car, his palms were sweating. He spotted them immediately at a picnic table near the playground. Elena sat facing him with the 3 girls on the opposite bench. They were dressed differently today. He could see that Sophia wore a soccer jersey, Olivia had a blue headband, and Emma's hair was shorter than her sister's. David took a deep breath and walked toward them, the bag of dolls feeling heavy in his hand. With each step, his usual confidence drained away. Mom, is that the man who fixed our car? Sophia asked as David approached. Elena nodded. Yes, that's him. David stopped at the edge of the picnic table, suddenly unsure if he should sit. Hello, he said, looking at the 3 identical faces examining him with curiosity. Girls, Elena said carefully, this is David Reynolds. He's an old friend of mine from college. Thank you for helping us with the tire, Olivia said politely. Emma held her inhaler tightly, watching him with cautious eyes. Are you going to stand there all day? Sophia asked directly. David laughed nervously and sat down beside Elena. I brought you something, he said, placing the bag on the table. As the girls reached for the bag, Elena gave David a look that told him this conversation was just beginning. The most important meeting of his life was about to start, and for once, David Reynolds had absolutely no idea what to say. The girls opened the gift bag and each pulled out an identical doll with blonde hair and a pink dress. They looked at the dolls, then at each other. Thank you, Olivia said politely, though she set the doll aside quickly. I already have 3 dolls at home, Sophia said, less diplomatically. Emma smiled weakly. It's nice. She placed her doll next to Olivia's. David felt his face grow warm. I wasn't sure what you would like. Elena gave the girls a pointed look. Girls, what do we say when someone gives us a gift? Thank you, Mr. Reynolds, they said together. You can call me David, he said, then glanced at Elena uncertainly. Sophia leaned forward. Where have you been all our lives? The direct question made David freeze. Elena put her hand on Sophia's shoulder. Sophia, remember what we talked about? But Mom, you said he's an old friend. Why haven't we met him before? David looked at Elena, then back at Sophia. That's a fair question. Your mom and I knew each other at Harvard, but we lost touch before you were born. I made some mistakes. I focused on my work instead of important relationships. What kind of work do you do? Emma asked quietly. I run a technology company. We make computer software. Is that why you have that fancy car? Sophia pointed to his BMW. David nodded, uncomfortable. Yes, my company has been successful. Do you like science? Emma asked, her interest seemingly piqued. I studied computer science in college, so yes. Emma loves science, Elena explained, especially astronomy. I'm building a model of the solar system for school, Emma said, her voice growing more confident. But I can't get the rings of Saturn right. Before David could respond, Sophia cut in. These dolls are for little kids. We're 9. Sophia, Elena warned. Well, we are, Sophia defended herself. "And we're not really doll kids." David looked at Elena. "What do they like?" Elena smiled slightly. "Sophia plays soccer. She's on a competitive team. Olivia takes piano lessons. She's quite talented. And Emma, as you heard, loves science and reading." "I see." David felt foolish for not asking first. "Maybe next time I can bring something you actually like." "Next time?" Sophia raised her eyebrows. Emma suddenly began coughing. She reached for her inhaler, her small hands shaking slightly. Elena immediately moved to her side. "Slow breaths, Emma," she said calmly, helping her daughter use the inhaler. David watched helplessly as Emma took her medication. After a few moments, her breathing eased. "I'm okay now," Emma said, her voice a little raspy. Elena stroked Emma's hair. "Do you want to go play for a while? I need to talk to David." The girls looked at each other, then at David. "Can we go to the playground?" Olivia asked. "Yes, but stay where I can see you," Elena said. "And Sophia, watch out for your sisters." "I always do," Sophia said, with a maturity beyond her years. She took Emma's hand. "Come on." As the girls walked to the playground, David turned to Elena. "Is Emma okay? It was just a mild flare-up. The medication you helped pay for controls it much better than what we had before." Elena watched the girls for a moment. Emma's asthma was severe when she was younger. She was hospitalized 3 times before she turned 5. "I had no idea," David said quietly. "How could you?" "You weren't here." There was no bitterness in Elena's voice, just fact. "After you left, I dropped out of nursing school in my final year. I couldn't handle the clinical rotations while pregnant with triplets." "I'm so sorry, Elena." "I worked 3 jobs after they were born. My parents helped a lot. They postponed their retirement to help me raise the girls. We manage, but it's been hard." She looked directly at him. "What do you want from this, David? Why did you ask to meet them?" David watched the girls at the playground. Sophia was helping Emma climb a ladder while Olivia waited at the top. "I don't know exactly. When I saw them on the highway, something changed in me. I can't explain it. I just know I need to be part of their lives, if you'll let me. They've done fine without a father for 9 years. I know that. You've done an amazing job with them." David hesitated. "Let me help financially at least. Child support, school expenses, medical bills, anything you need." Elena shook her head. "We don't need your money. Elena, please, I can see you're working multiple jobs. Let me make things easier." "Easier?" Elena's voice hardened slightly. "Nothing about raising triplets alone has been easy, David. Money helps, yes. But these girls need consistency. They need people they can count on." "I want to be that person," David said. "I want to try, at least." Elena studied him. "And what happens when you get bored or when work becomes too demanding? Will you disappear again?" Before David could answer, Sophia called from the playground. "Mom, look at me." She was standing at the top of the climbing wall, waving proudly. "I see you, honey. Be careful coming down." Elena called back, then turned to David. "This isn't a business deal you can invest in and walk away from if it doesn't work out. These are children with feelings. I understand that. All I'm asking for is a chance." After a long moment, Elena nodded. "We take this slowly. Very slowly. You can see them once a week for short visits at first. If that goes well, we can discuss more time." "Thank you," David said, relief washing over him. "I promise I won't let them down." Over the next 3 weeks, David kept his promise. He attended Sophia's soccer practice on Wednesday afternoons, sitting awkwardly with the other parents on the sidelines. Sophia was fierce on the field, her competitive spirit evident in every play. "Did you see my goal?" she asked after practice. "It was fantastic," David said honestly. "You're really talented." Sophia shrugged, but he could tell she was pleased. On Thursdays, David picked up Olivia from her piano lessons at the Riverside Music School. The first time, he sat in silence as she practiced. By the third week, she began explaining the pieces to him. "This is Chopin," she said, playing a few notes. "He's my favorite." For Emma, David researched astronomy books appropriate for 9-year-olds and brought her a new one each week. They would sit on a bench in the park while she excitedly explained constellations to him. "The stars in Orion's belt are actually really far apart from each other," she told him. "They just look close from Earth." At Reynolds Tech, David's new schedule didn't go unnoticed. He began delegating tasks he would normally handle himself, and for the first time he left the office before 7 o'clock several days a week. "You missed the call with the Tokyo investors yesterday," Marcus said, stopping by David's office one afternoon. "Johnson handled it. He knows the technical specifications better than I do anyway." Marcus leaned against the door frame. "This is about those kids, isn't it? You're letting it affect your work." "I'm adjusting my schedule, not abandoning the company," David replied, closing his laptop. "I need to leave now. I promised Emma I'd help her with her science homework." "This isn't like you, David. We built this company by putting everything else second." "Maybe that's been the problem all along," David said, standing to leave. "There are other things that matter." As David drove toward Elena's apartment in Somerville, his phone rang. Seeing Elena's name, he answered immediately. "David, I need to talk to you about something," Elena said, her voice tense. "Is everything okay? Are the girls all right?" "They're fine. She paused. "My dad wants to talk to you." David felt a knot form in his stomach. "Your father?" "Richard Martinez isn't someone who forgives easily, especially when it comes to the man who abandoned his daughter and granddaughters." Elena's voice softened slightly. "But he's seen how consistently you've shown up these past weeks. He wants to meet you properly." "When?" "Tomorrow evening, at his house in Dorchester." Elena hesitated. "He's important to the girls, David. They adore their grandfather." "I'll be there," David said, understanding the unstated message. Richard Martinez's approval mattered if David wanted to remain in his daughter's lives. "Thank you. I'll text you the address." Elena paused. "And David? Maybe don't wear one of your expensive suits. Dad is sensitive about that kind of thing." After they hung up, David took a deep breath. Meeting his daughters had been intimidating enough. Meeting the man who had helped raise them in his absence would be something else entirely. David arrived at the Martinez house in Dorchester at 6 o'clock the next evening, wearing jeans and a simple button-down shirt instead of his usual suit. The modest 2-story home had a small front yard with carefully tended flower beds. Richard Martinez opened the door before David could knock. He was a stocky man in his 60s with silver hair and Elena's same dark eyes. He did not smile. "Mr. Reynolds," he said, extending his hand. "Come in." The handshake was firm, almost painfully so. David followed Richard into a small dining room where a woman who must be Elena's mother, Carmen, was setting the table. "This is my wife, Carmen," Richard said. Carmen nodded politely, but her eyes were wary. "Elena and the girls will join us later for dessert. She wanted us to talk first." They sat at the dining table with cups of coffee. Richard studied David for a long moment. "When Elena told us she was pregnant 10 years ago, she also told us about you. About how you walked away." Richard's voice was calm, but there was steel behind it. "She was in her final year of nursing school. Did you know that?" "She mentioned it," David said quietly. "Elena had straight A's. She had already been offered a position at Children's Hospital after graduation." Richard leaned forward. "When she found out she was having triplets, she couldn't continue her clinical rotations. The physical strain was too much." "I didn't know," David said. "I didn't know about any of it." "Because you chose not to know," Carmen interjected, her voice softer than her husband's but no less firm. "She tried to contact you." David looked down at his coffee. "I blocked her number. I was focused on starting my company. I thought having a child would derail everything. Not a child. 3 children, Richard corrected. We postponed our retirement to help her. I took a second job. Carmen watched the girls while Elena worked. We made it work because that's what family does. I see that now, David said. I want to be part of their lives. I want to help. Help? Richard raised an eyebrow. They don't need your money, Mr. Reynolds. They need consistency, reliability. Will you be there when Emma has an asthma attack at 3 in the morning? Will you sit through 20 elementary school recitals? Will you be there when they have their hearts broken for the first time? Before David could answer, his phone rang. He quickly silenced it, but not before seeing Marcus's name on the screen. Seconds later, it rang again. You should take that, Richard said. Might be important. David hesitated, then answered. Marcus, I can't talk right now. The Tokyo investors are backing out, Marcus said urgently. We need to set up an emergency call in 30 minutes, or the whole deal falls apart. David looked at Richard and Carmen watching him. I can't. I'm in the middle of something important. $50 million important? Because that's what we're about to lose. I'll call you back. David hung up and put his phone away. Richard nodded slightly. Business emergency? It can wait, David said firmly. Something in Richard's expression softened a fraction. Elena tells me you've been consistent these past weeks. That's a start, but it's only been a month. These girls have been alive for 9 years. You've got a lot of catching up to do. I know that, sir. I'm trying. Richard leaned back in his chair. Just understand this. If you disappear on them again, if you break their hearts, you'll answer to me. Not legally. I know men like you can afford lawyers, but you'll have to live with yourself. The tension in the room was broken by the sound of the front door opening and children's voices filling the hallway. The girls rushed in, followed by Elena. Grandpa! Sophia called, rushing to hug Richard. Then she saw David. Oh, you're here. We invited him for dinner, Carmen explained, hugging each girl in turn. Did you yell at him, Grandpa? Sophia asked bluntly. Sophia! Elena scolded, but Richard chuckled. We just talked, Mija, he assured her, like grown-ups do. The dinner that followed was surprisingly pleasant. Carmen had made her famous enchiladas, and the girls chatted about their day at school. David noticed how naturally Elena's parents interacted with the triplets. The inside jokes, the gentle corrections, the casual physical affection. This was a real family, one that had formed and strengthened in his absence. After dinner, David's phone rang twice more. Each time he silenced it without answering. The following week brought more complications. Emma's science fair was scheduled for Thursday evening at her elementary school in Somerville. David had promised to attend and had rearranged several meetings to make it possible. But on Thursday afternoon, as David was preparing to leave the office, Marcus burst in. The server's down. The entire presentation system for the Tokyo investors is offline. Can't the IT team handle it? David asked, checking his watch. They've been trying for an hour. We need you. You designed the original system architecture. David hesitated. I promised Emma I'd be at her science fair. It starts in 45 minutes. Marcus stared at him. David, this is the $50 million deal we've been working on for a year. If we lose it, we might have to lay people off. David called Elena, his stomach tight with dread. I'm so sorry, he said after explaining the situation. Tell Emma I'll make it up to her. She was really excited for you to see her project, Elena said, disappointment clear in her voice. She's been talking about it all week. I know, I feel terrible. Is there any way you can take pictures? That's not the point, David, Elena said quietly before hanging up. It took 3 hours to fix the server problem. By the time David was done, the science fair was long over. He drove to Elena's apartment anyway, hoping to at least apologize to Emma in person. Elena opened the door, looking tired. They're getting ready for bed. Can I see them, just for a minute? Elena hesitated, then nodded. They're in their room. David followed her down a short hallway to a small bedroom. All 3 girls were in pajamas. brushing their teeth in the tiny bathroom across the hall. The bedroom itself was barely large enough for the 3 twin beds that were squeezed into the space. School backpacks hung on hooks on the wall, and a small desk was positioned under the room's only window. When Emma saw David, her face fell. "You didn't come." "I'm so sorry, Emma. There was an emergency at work. I really wanted to see your project." "I got second place," she said quietly. "We had to build a model of an ecosystem. I made a tidal pool." "That sounds amazing," David said sincerely. "I wish I could have seen it." "It's still at school," Sophia interjected. "But you probably have more work emergencies anyway." The accusation stung because it was fair. "You're right, Sophia. I messed up." Over the weekend, David researched online and found that the Boston Museum of Science had a special exhibit on ocean ecosystems. On Sunday morning, he arrived at Elena's apartment with a plan. "I'd like to take Emma to the Museum of Science today," he told Elena, "to make up for missing her science fair. If that's okay with you." Elena looked uncertain. "Have you asked Emma if she wants to go?" "Not yet. I wanted to check with you first." Elena called Emma to the door. "David has something to ask you." "Emma, I know I can't make up for missing your science fair, but there's a special ocean exhibit at the Museum of Science today. Would you like to go? Just you and me?" Emma looked at her mother, then back at David. "Can we see the electricity show too?" "Whatever you want," David promised. At the museum, Emma slowly began to relax around David. She excitedly explained tidal pool formations as they explored the ocean exhibit, her knowledge impressive for a 9-year-old. "How do you know so much about this?" David asked as they watched sea stars in a touch tank. "I read books from the library," Emma said. "Mom takes us every Saturday." During the electricity show, Emma's eyes widened at each demonstration. When the Van de Graaff generator made a volunteer's hair stand up, she laughed out loud, a sound David realized he'd rarely heard from her. On the drive back to Elena's apartment, Emma asked, "Why did you miss my science fair? Was your work more important?" David gripped the steering wheel. "No, Emma, it wasn't more important. I made a mistake. Sometimes adults make the wrong choices, even when they're trying to make the right ones. Mom never misses our school stuff, even when she's really tired from work." "Your mom is amazing," David agreed. "I'm still learning how to balance everything." When they returned, Elena was waiting with Sophia and Olivia. "Did you have fun?" she asked Emma. "Yes. We saw lightning made inside, and I touched a sea star." Later, as the girls went to play, Elena pulled David aside. "My boss at the diner cut my hours. Budget problems." "I can help," David offered immediately. "Please let me." Elena shook her head. "That's not why I told you." She hesitated. "I've been thinking about making a change anyway. I've always wanted to open a small bakery with recipes from my Mexican heritage." "A bakery? That's a wonderful idea." "It's just a dream right now. The startup costs alone." "What if I helped you get started?" "Not as charity," David added quickly, seeing her expression. "As an investment in your business." Elena looked skeptical. "I don't need your guilt money, David." "It's not about guilt. It's about supporting something important to you." David looked around the small apartment, his eyes landing on the door to the girls' cramped bedroom. "These girls deserve more space, Elena. They're growing up." "We manage," Elena said firmly. "I know you do. But you shouldn't have to just manage. Not when I can help." David hesitated. "At least think about the bakery idea. We could work on a business plan together." As David drove home that evening, his phone rang. It was Marcus. "The Tokyo investors are back on board," he said without greeting. "No thanks to your disappearing act." "Good," David replied simply. "Good? That's all you have to say?" "David, what's happening to you? This company used to be your entire life." David thought of Emma's face lighting up at the museum, of Sophia's fierce protectiveness, of Olivia's quiet talent. Maybe that was the problem, he said quietly. Marcus's words stayed with David long after their phone call ended. For the first time, he was questioning the value of success that came at the expense of everything else. The next weekend, David attended Olivia's piano recital at the Riverside Music School. He sat in the back row watching as Olivia took her place at the grand piano on stage. Her face was serious as she positioned her hands over the keys. When she began to play, David was stunned. The music was complex and beautiful. Olivia's small fingers moved with confidence and emotion that seemed beyond her 9 years. When she finished, the audience applauded enthusiastically. David found himself blinking back unexpected tears. After the recital, Olivia approached him holding a bouquet of flowers that the music school had given her. "What did you think?" she asked quietly. "It was beautiful, Olivia. I had no idea you could play like that." A small smile appeared on her face. "I practice every day. Mom makes sure I have time, even when she's really tired." David looked over at Elena, who was speaking with the piano teacher. Even from across the room, he could see the dark circles under her eyes. Later, as they walked to their cars, David noticed Elena checking her phone anxiously. "Everything okay?" he asked. She sighed. "Just schedule conflicts. The diner added a morning shift to replace my evening hours, but it overlaps with my admin job. I'm trying to work it out." "You look exhausted, Elena." "I'm fine," she said automatically. "The girls need new school clothes and Emma's prescription is due for refill next week." "Let me help more," David said. "Not just with money. I could take the girls more often, give you time to rest." Elena gave him a tired smile. "You have your big deal coming up. The girls mentioned it." "The Tokyo investment. Yes, it's in the final stages." David hesitated. "But that doesn't mean I can't be here too." "We'll see," Elena said, clearly not convinced. Over the next 2 weeks, David tried to prove he could balance both worlds. He attended Sophia's soccer game on Saturday, helped Emma with a new science project on Sunday, and still managed to prepare for the Tokyo investment meeting scheduled for Thursday. Wednesday evening, David was reviewing the final presentation in his office when his phone rang. Seeing Elena's name, he smiled and answered. "Elena? Hi." "David!" Her voice was panicked. "Emma's having a severe asthma attack at school. I need to get her to the hospital right away, but my car won't start, and the ambulance will take too long in this traffic." David stood immediately. "Where are you?" "At their school, Lincoln Elementary in Somerville. I'm on my way. I'll be there in 15 minutes. And David grabbed his keys and rushed out, ignoring Marcus calling after him. He called his assistant from the car. "Cancel everything for the rest of the day. Family emergency." "But the investors are already on their way for the pre-meeting dinner," his assistant protested. "Handle it. This is life or death." David drove through Boston traffic with focused intensity, taking shortcuts through side streets until he reached Lincoln Elementary. Elena was waiting out front with all 3 girls. Emma's face was pale, her breathing labored as she leaned against her mother. "Get in," David said, jumping out to help them. Elena climbed into the back seat with Emma, while Sophia and Olivia got in the front passenger seat together. "Massachusetts General is closest," Elena said, helping Emma use her inhaler, which wasn't providing enough relief. David drove carefully but quickly, glancing in the rearview mirror at Emma's frightened face. "You're going to be okay, Emma," he said, trying to sound calm. "Just a few more minutes." "It hurts," Emma whispered, her hand clutching her chest. "I know, sweetheart," Elena said, holding her. "Just try to stay calm." At Massachusetts General Hospital, David parked in the emergency lane. He carried Emma inside while Elena followed with the twins. "My daughter can't breathe," David told the triage nurse. "She has severe asthma." The word daughter came out naturally, without hesitation. The nurse immediately called for assistance, and within minutes Emma was taken to a treatment room with Elena. David stayed in the waiting area with Sophia and Olivia. Both girls looked scared. "Is Emma going to be okay?" Olivia asked in a small voice. David sat between them and put an arm around each girl. "Yes, the doctors here are excellent and they know exactly how to help her breathing. She had to go to the hospital 3 times when we were little," Sophia said, once she had to stay for 4 days. That must have been scary for all of you, David said. Sophia nodded. Mom cried a lot when she thought we were asleep. David felt a sharp pang of guilt. Your mom is very brave. Are you going to leave again? Olivia asked suddenly. The question caught David off guard. What do you mean? Mom said you were friends before we were born, but then you went away, Olivia explained. Are you going to go away again? David looked into Olivia's serious eyes. No, I'm not going anywhere. Promise? Sophia demanded. I promise. 2 hours passed. David bought snacks for the girls and played word games to distract them. He called his office once to check in, only to learn that Marcus had managed to delay the investors until tomorrow. Just as Sophia was starting to get restless, Elena appeared in the waiting room doorway. The doctor says Emma is responding well to the treatment, she said, relief evident in her voice. They want to keep her a few more hours for observation, but she's going to be fine. Can we see her? Olivia asked. Yes, she's asking for you. As they started to walk toward Emma's room, David's phone rang. It was Marcus again. David silenced it and put the phone in his pocket. 10 minutes later, as they sat with Emma in her treatment room, a commotion in the hallway caught their attention. Marcus appeared in the doorway, his face flushed with anger. David, I need to speak with you. Now. David stepped into the hallway, closing the door behind him. What are you doing here, Marcus? What am I doing? What are you doing? The Tokyo investors are waiting. $50 million, David. We've worked for this for over a year. My daughter had a severe asthma attack, David said firmly. Your daughter? Marcus laughed without humor. You didn't even know she existed 2 months ago, and now you're throwing away everything we've built? Lower your voice, David said, glancing at the door. This is a hospital. I don't care if it's the White House. You've lost your mind, David. These people, this situation, it's not your responsibility. Yes, it is, David replied. Those girls are my responsibility. They have been since the day they were born, whether I accepted it or not. So what are you saying? You're walking away from the biggest deal of our careers for this instant family you've suddenly decided to play house with? Before David could answer, the door opened. Emma stood there, still wearing her oxygen mask, her face pale. She reached out her small hand for David's. David immediately took her hand and knelt to her level. You should be resting, Emma. I heard yelling, she said, her voice muffled by the mask. David looked up at Marcus, then back at Emma. Everything's okay. My friend Marcus was just leaving. The investors won't wait forever, David, Marcus warned. If you're not there tomorrow morning, the deal is dead. And so is our partnership. David stood still holding Emma's hand. Then I guess it's dead. These girls are more important. Marcus stared at him in disbelief before turning and walking away. Inside the room, Elena had heard everything. She looked at David with an expression he couldn't quite read. Later that evening, after Emma was released with new medication and instructions, David drove everyone back to Elena's apartment. The girls were tired, and Emma fell asleep in the car. After the girls were in bed, David and Elena sat at her small kitchen table. Thank you for today, Elena said quietly. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't been able to drive us. You don't need to thank me. David paused. Elena, I've been thinking. This apartment is too small for 4 people. Emma needs a better environment for her asthma. David, please hear me out. There are houses in Newton, near excellent schools. The air quality is better there, and Emma would have her own room. You all would. Elena's expression hardened. So that's your solution? Throw money at the problem? I'm trying to help. By buying us a house in Newton? Moving us into your world? Elena shook her head. We don't need your guilt money, David. The girls need a father, not a checkbook. It's not about guilt, David protested. Isn't it? You missed 9 years of their lives. You can't buy that back. David was silent for a moment. You're right. I can't buy back the time I lost, but I can be here now. Today, when Marcus showed up at the hospital, I realized something. The business deal I've been working on for over a year suddenly meant nothing compared to Emma needing me. Elena's expression softened slightly. And what happens when the next big deal comes along? I choose them, David said simply. Every time, I choose them. Words are easy, David. I know, that's why I'm going to show you. He leaned forward. You mentioned wanting to open a bakery. Tell me more about that dream. Elena looked surprised by the change of subject. It's just something I've thought about for years. My grandmother taught me to bake. I have all her recipes from Mexico. What would you call it? A small smile appeared on Elena's face. Elena's sweet trio. For the girls. I like that. David pulled a notepad from his pocket. Let's talk about what it would take to make that happen. Not as a handout, but as partners. Partners? Elena raised an eyebrow. You have the talent and the vision. I have business experience and resources. We could build something together, something that's yours, but that I help with. For the first time that day, Elena's tired eyes showed a spark of hope. You're serious, aren't you? Completely serious. The girls need their mother to have her dream too. As they began discussing possibilities, David realized that for the first time in his adult life, he wasn't thinking about profit margins or investor returns. Instead, he was imagining a future where 4 people who shared his DNA might also share their lives with him, not because he bought their affection, but because he earned their trust. The next morning, David woke up on Elena's couch, surrounded by notes about the bakery plan they had worked on until after midnight. He had insisted on staying to help after Emma had another small coughing fit before bed. Elena came into the living room carrying 2 cups of coffee. You're awake. I thought you might need this. Thank you, David said, accepting the mug. How's Emma this morning? Better. The new medication is working well. Elena sat across from him. About last night, about the bakery idea. You're having second thoughts? David asked. No, but I'm wondering if you are. In the light of day, without the emotion of yesterday's hospital visit, are you still sure about all this? David looked at the business plan notes they had created. More sure than I've been about anything in a long time. After leaving Elena's apartment, David didn't go to his office. Instead, he drove to a small diner in South Boston where he hadn't been in over 15 years. The Bell Diner looked exactly the same. Worn red booths, counter with spinning stools, and the same waitress who had worked there forever. Well, I'll be, she said, recognizing him. David Reynolds. Haven't seen you since before college. Hello, Nancy. David smiled. Is he here? Nancy nodded toward a booth in the back where an older man sat alone reading a newspaper. Every day, 7 to 9 in the morning. Coffee, toast, and the paper. David walked to the booth and stood beside it. The man looked up, surprise briefly crossing his weathered face before he returned to his newspaper. David, he said simply. Hello, Dad. Walter Reynolds folded his newspaper and gestured to the seat across from him. Sit down if you're staying. David sat. Nancy appeared with a coffee cup, filled it without asking, and disappeared again. 15 years, Walter said. Must be important for you to break the silence. I need advice, David admitted. Walter raised his eyebrows. From me? That's new. David took a deep breath. I have daughters. 3 of them. Triplets. Walter's eyes widened slightly. That's not what I expected to hear. David explained everything. Elena, the girls, the roadside meeting, the hospital visit, and his decision to walk away from the Tokyo deal. Walter listened without interrupting. So now I'm trying to figure out how to be there for them without controlling everything with money, David finished, and I realized I'm repeating patterns. Your patterns. Walter winced slightly. Ouch, but fair. You always chose work. You always thought money was the answer. And you resented me for it, Walter said. Yes. Walter was quiet for a moment. After your mother left, I was lost. I didn't know how to be both provider and parent, so I chose provider because it was what I understood. That's what I'm afraid of, David admitted, that I'll make the same mistakes. Sounds like you already avoided my biggest one, Walter said. When that little girl came out of her hospital room and took your hand, you chose her over your business deal. I never did that for you. It wasn't even a choice, David said. It just happened. Walter smiled slightly. Then you're already a better father than I was. He hesitated. I taught you all the wrong lessons, David. Success isn't measured by the numbers in your bank account. I'm beginning to understand that, David said. Later that day, David arrived at Reynolds Tech for the first time since the hospital incident. His assistant looked surprised to see him. Mr. Reynolds, we didn't expect you today. Is Marcus in? Yes, in the conference room with the legal team. David walked straight to the conference room and opened the door. Marcus and 3 lawyers looked up from a stack of documents. David, Marcus said coldly, nice of you to join us. We were just discussing the dissolution of our partnership. I have a counter-proposal, David said, placing a folder on the table. I've outlined a restructuring of the company. I'll step back from day-to-day operations and head a new educational technology division instead. Educational technology? Marcus scoffed. That's a tiny market compared to our enterprise clients. It has growth potential. More importantly, it has regular hours and social impact. I can run it while being present for my family. Marcus dismissed the lawyers with a wave of his hand. Once they were alone, he leaned forward. What happened to you, David? 2 months ago, you were focused, driven, relentless. Now you're talking about regular hours and family time. I found something more important, David said simply. Those girls have managed without you for 9 years. Elena has managed. That's the point. They shouldn't have had to. Marcus shook his head. This family fantasy will fall apart, David. And when it does, don't expect your empire to still be waiting for you. It's not a fantasy, David replied. It's a responsibility I'm finally accepting. That evening, David went to Elena's apartment with pizza for dinner. The girls were excited to see him, especially Emma, who showed him her new inhaler technique. After dinner, David asked to speak with all 3 girls in the living room. Elena sat nearby, watching carefully. I want to talk to you all about something important, David began. About why I wasn't in your lives until now. Sophia sat up straighter. Because you didn't want us? No, David said firmly. That's not true. The truth is, I made a very big mistake. When your mom told me she was pregnant, I was scared and selfish. I thought having children would stop me from being successful in business. So I walked away. That was mean, Olivia said quietly. Yes, it was. It was wrong and unfair to your mom and to you 3. David looked at each girl in turn. I can't change the past. I can't get back the 9 years I missed. But I want you to know that meeting you has changed everything for me. What about your big important business? Sophia asked skeptically. It's not as important as you 3, David said. That's why I missed the meeting with the Tokyo investors to take Emma to the hospital. Emma looked up from her inhaler. Really? Your friend was really mad. He was, but I made the right choice, David said. I'm making changes at my company so I can spend more time with you. If you'll let me. The girls exchanged looks, communicating silently in the way that only identical triplets could. We need to discuss it, Sophia said solemnly. Take all the time you need, David replied. The following Saturday, David helped Elena look at potential locations for her bakery. They visited 6 spaces in different neighborhoods before finding a small storefront in Cambridge. The foot traffic here is great, David said as they stood outside. Lots of students and professionals walking by. Elena looked through the windows. It needs work. New floors, paint, equipment. Nothing we can't handle, David said. Let's look inside. The space was small but had potential, with large windows and a small area that could become a seating section. The rent was reasonable because the previous tenant had left suddenly. "I can see it," Elena said, her eyes bright with excitement. "The counter there, display cases here, a few tables by the window." "It's perfect," David agreed. "I have a friend in real estate who can help negotiate a favorable lease." "I don't want special treatment because of your connections," Elena warned. "Not special treatment," David corrected. "Just standard business advice. The lease will be in your name. This is your bakery, Elena. I'm just helping with the business side." Back at his office on Monday, David found Marcus waiting for him. "I had the lawyers draw up a buyout offer," Marcus said, placing a thick document on David's desk. "I'll buy your shares." "You walk away." David looked at the document but didn't touch it. "We built this company together, Marcus. And now you're tearing it down with your divided attention." "No, I'm evolving it." David pushed the buyout offer back toward Marcus. "I'm not selling, but I am establishing the educational division like I proposed. You can run the enterprise side without my interference." Marcus picked up the document. "This isn't over, David." After Marcus left, David called Elena. "How would you feel about Friday night family dinners at my place? I can cook." "You cook?" Elena sounded surprised. "I can learn," David said, making her laugh. "I want to establish regular family time, something the girls can count on." That Friday, David cleaned his penthouse apartment and followed an online recipe for lasagna. It wasn't perfect, but when Elena and the girls arrived, the table was set and the apartment smelled like garlic and tomatoes. "Your home is so empty," Sophia commented, looking around at the minimal furniture and bare walls. "It is," David agreed. "Maybe you three could help me decorate sometime." As they ate dinner, David noticed Olivia looking at his grand piano in the corner. "Do you want to play after dinner?" he asked her. Olivia nodded shyly. "Yes, please." Later, as Olivia filled the apartment with beautiful music, David sat between Elena and the other two girls on his sofa. "I've never heard her play that piece before," Elena whispered. "She's writing it herself," Emma explained. "She calls it Father Found, but she doesn't know we know that." David felt his throat tighten with emotion. When Olivia finished playing, he was the first to applaud. That night, as David cleared his schedule for a third consecutive Friday family dinner, canceling his appearance at the annual tech industry gala he'd never missed before, he realized his life had completely changed in just a few short months. And despite Marcus's warning, David had never been more certain about what he wanted. David spent the next several days looking at houses in Somerville, close to where Elena and the girls lived. After viewing 7 properties, he found a modest 2-story home just 6 blocks from Elena's apartment. It had 3 bedrooms, a small backyard, and needed some updating, but it was within walking distance of the girls' school. "Are you sure about this?" the real estate agent asked as David signed the offer papers. "It's quite different from your current place." "I'm sure," David replied. "Location is what matters most." While waiting for his offer to be accepted, David began sorting through his belongings in the penthouse. He was surprised by how little he actually wanted to keep. The expensive furniture had been selected by an interior designer, the artwork on the walls meant nothing to him, and most of his clothes were business suits he rarely wore anymore. Elena called while he was boxing up kitchen items. "The contractor came to look at the bakery space," she said. "He thinks we can have it ready in 2 months if we start soon." "That's great," David said. "Did he give you an estimate?" "Yes, and it's a lot." Elena sounded worried. "More than we talked about." "Send me the numbers. We'll figure it out. I have some ideas for reducing costs." After they hung up, David continued packing. His phone rang again. Marcus. "The board wants to meet next week," Marcus said without greeting. "They're concerned about the changes you're proposing. I'll be there. David promised. "I have the presentation for the Educational Technology Division ready. This is a mistake, David. The board won't support it." Let them decide that. Later that week, David's offer on the house was accepted. That same day, he met Emma after school to help with her science homework. They sat at a table in the local library, surrounded by books about the solar system. "So Neptune is the coldest planet?" Emma asked, carefully writing notes. "Yes, because it's so far from the sun," David explained. "About 2.8 billion miles away." Emma looked up from her notebook. "I heard Mom talking about your new house." "Is it true?" "Yes. I'm moving closer to you three. It's a nice house with a backyard." "Will you have a telescope there? For stargazing?" "I will now." David smiled. "That's a wonderful idea." The following day, David picked up Olivia from her piano lesson. On the drive back to Elena's, Olivia was quieter than usual. "Is everything okay?" David asked. "My teacher says I should enter the regional piano competition," Olivia said. "But it's expensive to enter and we would have to travel to New York. Have you told your mom?" Olivia shook her head. "She's busy with the bakery plans. And I know we don't have extra money." "I think you should tell her," David said gently. "And if the money is the only problem, that's something I can help with." "Really?" Olivia's eyes brightened. "Absolutely. I'd love to hear you play in a competition." On Saturday morning, David met Sophia at her soccer field. He had offered to help her practice for an upcoming tournament. "Your team seems very good," David commented as they set up cones for drills. "We're okay," Sophia said with a shrug. "The West Side Tigers are better. They beat us last month." "Show me what you've been working on," David suggested. Sophia demonstrated her dribbling skills, which were impressive. When they moved to shooting practice, however, David noticed she was using only her right foot. "Have you tried practicing with your left foot too?" he asked. "Coach says the same thing, but I'm not good with my left." "That just means you need more practice with it," David said, repositioning the ball. "The best players can use both feet equally well." After 30 minutes of left foot practice, Sophia was showing improvement. "Not bad," she admitted, slightly out of breath. "You're a quick learner," David said, "just like your mom." Sophia gave him a searching look. "Why did you leave her? When she was pregnant with us?" The direct question caught David off guard, but he had promised himself to always be honest with the girls. "I was selfish," he answered. "I was focused on building my company and thought a family would hold me back. I was wrong, very wrong, but that was my thinking then. Are you and Mom getting back together?" "I don't know," David said truthfully. "Right now, we're focusing on being good parents to you three. The rest, we'll have to wait and see." Later that day, David and Elena visited the bakery space again, this time with all three girls. The contractor had started removing old fixtures, and the space was now empty. "It looks smaller without all the stuff," Sophia observed, her voice echoing slightly. "Just wait until you see it when it's done," Elena said, pulling out her design sketches. "The counter will be here, display cases along this wall, and tables by the windows." "Where will our table be?" Emma asked. "Your table?" David asked. "For homework after school," Emma explained. "Mom said we could come here after school instead of going to Mrs. Parker's for childcare." Elena smiled. "That's right. I thought a small corner in the back with good lighting and bookshelves." "That's a wonderful idea," David said, already thinking about how to design the perfect homework area. As they were leaving the bakery space, Richard and Carmen Martinez pulled up in their car. "Grandpa! Grandma!" the girls called, running to greet them. "We wanted to see this bakery we keep hearing about," Carmen said, hugging each girl. Richard nodded stiffly at David. The relationship remained tense, but Richard had stopped glaring at him, which felt like progress. "Would you like to see inside?" Elena asked her parents. While Elena showed her parents around, David stayed outside with the girls. "Grandpa still doesn't like you much," Sophia observed bluntly. "He loves you three very much," David replied. "He wants to make sure I don't hurt you." "Will you?" Emma asked quietly. "No," David said firmly. I'm here to stay." The following Monday, David faced the board of directors at Reynolds Tech. Marcus sat at the opposite end of the table, his expression hard. "Mr. Reynolds, we understand you're proposing significant changes to your role in the company," the board chairman said. "Yes," David confirmed. "I want to create and lead an educational technology division while stepping back from day-to-day operations of our enterprise business." "This is completely contrary to our growth strategy," Marcus interjected. "Not at all," David disagreed, passing out presentation folders. "Educational technology is a growing market with stable revenue potential. More importantly, it offers regular business hours and positive social impact." "And why is that suddenly important?" one board member asked. David looked directly at Marcus before answering. "Because I recently discovered I have 3 9-year-old daughters and I intend to be present in their lives." The board meeting lasted 2 hours. By the end, the board agreed to a 3-month trial of the new structure, with performance metrics to be evaluated quarterly. As David left the building, Marcus followed him to the elevator. "This isn't over," Marcus warned. "When this fails, and it will fail, I'll be ready with a buyout offer." "It won't fail," David said calmly. "But if it does, I'll accept the consequences." That Friday, David hosted his 4th family dinner at his penthouse. After dinner, while Elena helped Emma with a science project in the kitchen, David showed Olivia and Sophia the floor plan for his new house. "This will be my room," he explained, pointing to a bedroom. "And this room will be set up for the 3 of you when you visit. We can decorate it however you want." "Can I bring my soccer trophies?" Sophia asked. "Of course." "What about my keyboard?" Olivia added. "Absolutely. And we'll set up a space for Emma's science experiments too." The girls looked at each other, having one of their silent conversations. "I think it's okay," Sophia finally declared, which David had learned was high praise from her. 2 weeks later, David moved into his new house. The contrast between his luxury penthouse and the modest home was striking. His designer furniture looked out of place in the smaller rooms, and he ended up donating most of it and buying simpler pieces. Elena and the girls came to help him unpack on Saturday. David had ordered pizza, and they sat on the floor of the living room because his dining table hadn't been delivered yet. "This is weird," Sophia announced, looking around. "What is?" David asked. "You living in a normal house, not in that fancy building." "Do you like it better?" David asked. Sophia considered the question seriously. "Yes," she decided. "It feels more like a real home." Emma pointed out the window to the small backyard. "Where will the telescope go?" "I thought right there on that flat spot," David said. "It has the best view of the sky." "Can we try it tonight?" Emma asked eagerly. "As soon as it gets dark," David promised. After they finished eating, Elena pulled David aside. "The contractor says we can start painting the bakery next week," she said. "It's really happening." "Never doubted it," David replied. "I have more good news, too. The bank approved your business loan this morning. With my guarantee, they offered an excellent rate." Elena's eyes widened. "Really? That changes everything." "You still need to meet with them to sign the paperwork, but yes, it's approved." "Thank you," Elena said softly, "for helping make this happen." "It's your bakery, Elena. Your talent, your recipes, your vision. I'm just helping with the business side." Later that evening, as promised, David set up a telescope in the backyard. All 3 girls took turns looking at the moon and stars while Elena watched from the porch steps. "Can you see Saturn's rings?" Emma asked excitedly. "Not with this telescope," David admitted. "We'd need a more powerful one for that." "Maybe for Christmas?" Emma suggested hopefully. "Maybe," David agreed, making a mental note to research better telescopes. As the girls continued exploring the night sky, Elena joined David. "Your parents stopped by the bakery today," she said quietly. "Your father left his phone number. He said to call if you wanted to." David watched as Olivia helped Emma adjust the telescope. "I might do that. We've started talking again." "That's good," Elena said. "The girls should know their grandfather." "Both grandfathers," David agreed. "Speaking of which, I noticed your dad almost smiled at me last weekend." Elena laughed softly. "Progress. He's starting to believe you might actually stick around." "I will," David said firmly. "This isn't temporary, Elena." As they stood side by side watching their daughters discover stars in the night sky, David realized how drastically his life had changed in just a few months. His penthouse apartment, his corner office, his carefully controlled schedule, all replaced by pizza on the floor, science homework, soccer practice, and piano music. And somehow, for reasons he couldn't fully explain, this new life felt more real and more valuable than anything he had built before. 2 weeks later, the renovation of Elena's Sweet Trio bakery was nearly complete. The walls had been painted in warm colors, new flooring installed, and the custom counters were being delivered that morning. Elena stood in the middle of the space, watching as workers carefully positioned the glass display cases. "What do you think?" Elena asked as David walked in carrying coffee for both of them. "It's incredible," he said, handing her a cup. "Hard to believe this is the same empty space we saw 2 months ago." "We're on schedule to open in 14 days, Elena said, excitement in her voice. "The oven installation happens tomorrow, then we can start testing recipes in the actual kitchen." David's phone rang. Seeing Marcus's name, he hesitated before answering. "I need you at the office immediately," Marcus said without greeting. "Something big has happened." "I'm at the bakery with Elena. Can it wait an hour?" "No," Marcus insisted. "Silicon Valley Technologies is interested in acquiring us. The CEO is on a video call in 20 minutes. David looked at Elena, who had overheard the conversation. "Go," she said. "This sounds important." At Reynolds Tech, Marcus waited in the conference room with 4 members of the executive team. His usual scowl was replaced with an excited grin. "Silicon Valley Technologies," Marcus said as David entered. "The 3rd largest tech company in the country wants to buy Reynolds Tech." "Why?" David asked, sitting down. "They want our enterprise software platform and our client base," Marcus explained, "and they're willing to pay 5 times our current market value." The video call began, and Gerald Wilson, the CEO of Silicon Valley Technologies, appeared on screen. "David Reynolds," Gerald said, "your reputation precedes you. We've been watching Reynolds Tech for years." "I'm flattered," David replied. "But why acquisition instead of partnership? We need your technology and your leadership," Gerald explained. "Our offer includes executive positions for both you and Mr. Blackwell. We'd want you to relocate to our headquarters in California, of course." After the call ended, Marcus could barely contain his excitement. "Do you realize what this means? We'd both become billionaires. Billionaires, David." "They want us to move to California," David said quietly. "Of course they do. That's where the headquarters is." Marcus studied David's face. "Don't tell me you're hesitating because of those girls." "They're my daughters, Marcus. I can't just move across the country away from them." "Bring them with you. Bring Elena too, if that's what it takes. This is the opportunity of a lifetime." David stood up. "I need to think about this. Send me the details of their offer." "They need an answer within 2 weeks," Marcus called after him. David drove straight to the bakery, where Elena was discussing menu items with a graphic designer for the wall signs. "How was your meeting?" she asked when they had a moment alone. "A company wants to buy Reynolds Tech," David explained. "A very large company offering a lot of money." "That's good, right? They want me to relocate to California." Elena's smile faded. "I see. I haven't agreed to anything," David said quickly. "I told Marcus I need to think about it." "What is there to think about?" Elena asked. "The girls are here. Your life is here now." "I know that. I just need time to figure out how to respond." That evening, David helped Emma with her science project at his house. They were building a model of the solar system using foam balls and paint. "Neptune needs to be blue," Emma instructed, handing him a small paintbrush. As David carefully painted the tiny planet, Emma asked, "Are you going to move to California?" David looked up in surprise. "How did you know about that?" "I heard Mom talking to Grandma on the phone," Emma admitted. She sounded sad. "I don't want to move away from you and your sisters," David assured her. "But what if you have to?" "For your work," David put down the paintbrush. "Emma, nothing is more important to me than being your dad. Not money, not work, nothing." Emma nodded, but David could see uncertainty in her eyes. The following day, David received a preliminary offer document from Silicon Valley Technologies. The numbers were staggering, even more than Marcus had suggested. The contract included a non-negotiable relocation clause requiring David to be based at their California headquarters for a minimum of 2 years. As David stared at the document, his phone rang. It was Elena. "David!" Her voice was tight with fear. "Emma's school just called. She's having an asthma attack. It seems bad." "Where are you?" David asked, already grabbing his keys. "I'm at the bakery with the health inspector. I can't leave right now or we'll fail the inspection and miss our opening date." "I'll go get her," David said. "Which school?" "Lincoln Elementary. They're taking her to the nurse's office." "Thank you, David." David was halfway to his car when Marcus stepped out of the elevator. "Where are you going?" Marcus demanded. "We have the follow-up call with Silicon Valley in 10 minutes. Emma's having an asthma attack. I need to get her to the hospital." "Send a car service," Marcus suggested, "or call an ambulance." "This call is too important." David didn't even slow down. "Tell them I'll reschedule." At Lincoln Elementary, David found Emma in the nurse's office, struggling to breathe despite using her inhaler. Her face was pale and her lips had a bluish tint. "Daddy!" she gasped when she saw him, using the word for the first time. David felt his heart clench as he lifted her into his arms. "I'm here, sweetheart. We're going to the hospital right now." At Massachusetts General Hospital, doctors immediately took Emma to a treatment room. David called Elena to update her, then sat in the waiting area with Sophia and Olivia, who had been brought by Elena's mother. "Is Emma going to be okay?" Olivia asked worriedly. "Yes," David assured her. "The doctors are helping her breathe better." Sophia, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly spoke. "I was scared when they called us from our classrooms. The last time that happened, Emma had to stay in the hospital for 3 days. David put his arm around her. "She's getting the best care possible." Sophia looked up at him, her eyes full of rare vulnerability. "I was afraid you wouldn't come, that you'd be too busy with your important work. I will always come when you girls need me," David promised. "Always." Sophia leaned against his shoulder. "I was really mean to you when we first met." "You had every right to be cautious," David said. "I'm still mad sometimes that you weren't there before," Sophia admitted. "But I'm glad you're here now." "So am I," David said softly. Just then, his phone rang again. It was Marcus, for the 4th time. David silenced it without answering. After an hour, a doctor came to update them. "Emma is responding well to treatment. You can see her now." They found Emma sitting up in bed, looking tired but much better. She smiled when she saw them. "The doctor says I can go home soon," she told them. "I just need one more breathing treatment." As the girls talked, David's phone vibrated with a text from Elena. "Health inspector found issues with the ventilation system. Says we can't open until it's fixed. Will cost $5,000 we don't have. Don't tell the girls." David was composing a reply when the door opened and Marcus walked in, looking completely out of place in his expensive suit. "A word, David," he said stiffly. "In the hallway." David followed him out, closing the door behind them. "You missed the call," Marcus said. "I covered for you, but Gerald Wilson wants to speak with you directly tomorrow." "Thank you for handling it," David said. Marcus handed him a thick envelope. "This is the official acquisition offer. The final version includes that relocation clause we discussed. 2 years minimum in California. David took the envelope but didn't open it. "Marcus, just read it," Marcus interrupted. "Read it and think about what you're giving up if you say no. This is everything we've worked for." Before David could respond, the door opened and Emma came out, still wearing her hospital gown. "Dad?" she called. "The doctor says I can go home now." Marcus looked at Emma, then back at David. "Is this really worth throwing away $1 billion?" David looked at Emma's small face, then at the contract in his hand. In that moment, everything became perfectly clear. "Yes," he said simply. "It is." Marcus shook his head in disbelief. "You've lost your mind." "No," David replied. "For the first time, I know exactly what matters." He handed the envelope back to Marcus. "I'm not moving to California. I'm not leaving my daughters. Then what about our company?" "I'll sell my shares to you," David said. "Use my portion of the proceeds to invest in Elena's bakery and set up trust funds for the girls' education. Just like that, you'd walk away from everything we built?" "I'm not walking away from anything," David said. "I'm walking towards something more important." Emma tugged at David's hand. "Can we go home now?" "Yes, sweetheart. Let's go home." Later that evening, after Emma was settled at Elena's apartment with her sisters, David explained everything to Elena: the acquisition offer, the relocation requirement, and his decision. "You turned down becoming a billionaire?" Elena asked, stunned. "It would have meant moving to California for at least 2 years," David explained. "Away from you and the girls, that's not an option." "But your company—" "I'm selling my shares to Marcus," David said, "and I want to use part of that money to fix the ventilation system at the bakery if you'll let me." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "David, it's not charity," he insisted. "It's an investment in our family's future." "In the girls' future." "Our family," Elena repeated softly. 3 days later, David and Elena hosted a pre-opening event at Elena's Sweet Trio Bakery. The ventilation system had been fixed, the health inspector had approved everything, and the space looked beautiful. Local neighbors, friends, and family gathered to sample Elena's baking. During the event, David clinked a glass to get everyone's attention. With Elena beside him and the 3 girls standing in front, he addressed the crowd. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate this new beginning. 10 years ago, I made the biggest mistake of my life by walking away from responsibility. But fate gave me a second chance I didn't deserve." David looked down at the 3 identical faces beside him. "I want to officially introduce you to my daughters, Sophia, Olivia, and Emma Reynolds." It was the first time he had publicly acknowledged them as his children, using his last name. The girls beamed with pride as the crowd applauded. From the back of the room, Marcus watched with a mixture of disbelief and reluctant admiration. After the speeches ended, he approached David. "The paperwork for the share transfer is ready," he said. "You're really going through with this?" David nodded. "Absolutely." Marcus looked around at the bakery, at Elena proudly showing off her kitchen, at the 3 girls helping serve cookies to guests. "Maybe you're not as crazy as I thought," he admitted, "but I still think you're making a mistake." David watched as Emma waved at him from across the room, her smile bright and healthy. "That's where you're wrong, Marcus," he said. "For the first time in my life, I'm not making a mistake. I'm making the right choice." The grand opening of Elena's Sweet Trio Bakery happened on a perfect October morning. A line of customers stretched around the block, eager to try the treats they had sampled at the pre-opening event. Elena stood behind the counter wearing a new apron with the bakery's logo, 3 identical cupcakes in different colors. "I can't believe this is really happening," she said to David, who was helping arrange pastries in the display case. "Believe it," David replied. "You made this happen." The bakery quickly filled with customers. Elena's triple chocolate cookies, 1 flavor named for each daughter, were the most popular item, selling out within 3 hours. Sophia, Olivia, and Emma arrived after school, rushing in with excitement. "Mom, the line is still outside," Sophia exclaimed. Is that a good thing? Olivia asked. It's a very good thing, David assured her. It means the bakery is a success. Emma went straight to the small corner that had been designed especially for them. The area had a round table, comfortable chairs, good lighting, and bookshelves. Our homework spot is perfect, she declared, setting down her backpack. David watched the girls settle in, feeling a wave of contentment. 2 weeks had passed since he had turned down the Silicon Valley Technologies offer and sold his majority shares to Marcus. The sale was finalized yesterday, making David officially a minority shareholder in the company he had founded. Yet seeing the girls and Elena happy in this space they had created together, he had no regrets. His phone buzzed with a text from Jill Porter, the head of his new educational technology division. Meeting with Cambridge Public Schools tomorrow at 9 a.m. They're interested in the math program. David smiled. The educational technology division was small but growing. They were developing software to help students struggling with math and science, and several school districts had already expressed interest. That evening, after the bakery closed, Elena and David sat at one of the small tables near the window, reviewing the day's sales. We sold 457 items today, Elena said, looking at the numbers. That's more than double what I expected. The reviews online are already amazing, David added, showing her his phone screen. 5 stars across the board. Elena reached across the table and touched his hand. Thank you. For believing in this. For believing in me. I always will, David said softly. Their eyes held for a moment and David felt something shift between them. It wasn't the intense passion of their youth, but something deeper, built on shared struggles and mutual respect. Would you like to have dinner with me sometime? He asked. Just the two of us? Elena smiled. Are you asking me on a date, David Reynolds? Yes, I believe I am. Then yes, Elena said. I'd like that. Their first date was simple. Dinner at a quiet restaurant while Carmen watched the girls. They talked about the bakery, about the girls, about David's new work with schools. It felt both familiar and completely new. This is strange, Elena admitted as they walked back to her apartment. Dating the father of my children after all these years. Good strange or bad strange? David asked. Good strange, she decided, like we're finally doing things in the right order. At her door, David kissed her cheek gently. Good night, Elena. Good night, David. Over the next month, David established clear routines with each of his daughters. Saturdays became Science Day with Emma. They conducted experiments in his kitchen, built models of molecules, and took trips to the Museum of Science. Dad, look at this! Emma called out during one of their museum visits, pointing to a display about space exploration. It was the first time she had called him Dad without thinking about it, and David had to turn away to hide his emotion. For Olivia, David attended every piano lesson and practice session. He learned about classical composers and musical theory alongside her. This is Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, Olivia explained during one lesson, playing the famous opening notes. Everyone knows this part, but the whole piece is beautiful. With Sophia, David coached her soccer team twice a week. At first, the other parents were skeptical of the well-dressed businessman on the field, but as weeks passed, they accepted him as just another dedicated father. You need to show Tommy how to use his left foot, Sophia instructed during one practice. He keeps missing shots because he only uses his right. I'll work with him, David promised, impressed by her observations. As November arrived, Elena brought up the subject of Thanksgiving. My parents always host Thanksgiving at their house, she explained as they closed the bakery one evening. The girls and I go there every year. Would you like to join us this year? I'd love to, David said. Do you think your father would mind? He's getting used to you, Elena smiled. Actually, I was thinking maybe we could invite your father too. The girls should know both their grandfathers. David hesitated. I'll ask him, but I'm not sure he'll come. He doesn't do family gatherings much. To David's surprise, Walter agreed immediately when asked. "Those are my granddaughters," he said gruffly. "Of course I'll be there." Thanksgiving at the Martinez home was initially awkward. Richard and Walter eyed each other cautiously, and Carmen kept offering Walter more food as if trying to make up for the tension. The girls, however, were fascinated by their newly discovered grandfather. "Did our dad look like you when he was little?" Emma asked Walter as they sat in the living room before dinner. Walter smiled slightly. He had the same serious expression, always thinking about something. But he was smaller than you three. "Were you a good dad?" Sophia asked bluntly. The room went quiet. Walter looked at David, then back at Sophia. "No," he said honestly, "I wasn't. I made mistakes. I put work before family, just like your dad did at first." "But he's better now," Sophia said. "Yes," Walter agreed. "He's much better than I was. He learned faster." During dinner, the conversation gradually relaxed. Richard and Walter discovered they had both served in the Navy, though in different decades, and began sharing stories. As Elena and Carmen brought out dessert, pies from the bakery, Sophia looked across the table at David. "Dad, can you pass the whipped cream?" The table went silent again, but for a different reason. It was the first time Sophia had called him Dad in front of everyone. David handed her the whipped cream, his voice a bit unsteady when he spoke. "Here you go, Sophia." Elena caught his eye across the table, smiling at him with understanding. This moment meant everything. After Thanksgiving, David noticed a subtle shift in the girls' behavior. They began to call him Dad more consistently. They shared more about their lives at school, and they seemed more comfortable at his house. In early December, David learned that Olivia's piano teacher was organizing a holiday concert at Boston Children's Hospital. "Olivia is playing 2 pieces, Elena told him. "She's nervous because it's for sick children." "I think that's wonderful," David said. "Is there anything I can do to help?" Elena hesitated. Actually, the teacher mentioned they need donations for small gifts for the children after the concert. "Nothing expensive. Just something to make them smile." "I can take care of that," David said, "and maybe we could do more." With Olivia's help, David organized additional musicians to join the concert. He contacted local toy stores for donations and arranged for a professional photographer to document the event. The day of the concert, Olivia played beautifully. Her confidence had grown over the months, and she showed no nervousness as she performed a holiday melody that brought tears to many eyes. Afterwards, as gifts were distributed to the young patients, David noticed a small boy in a wheelchair watching Olivia with admiration. "Do you like music?" David asked the boy. "Yes," the boy nodded. "I want to learn piano, but I can't leave the hospital yet." "What if the piano came to you?" David suggested. Within 2 weeks, David had arranged for the hospital to receive 2 electronic keyboards and weekly music lessons for interested patients. When he told Olivia about it, she immediately volunteered to help teach. "Music makes people feel better," she explained seriously. "I want to help." As Christmas approached, Elena and David found themselves alone at the bakery late one evening after a holiday cookie workshop. The girls were at a sleepover at a friend's house, giving the adults rare quiet time. "The girls are asking if we're getting back together," Elena said as they cleaned up. "They want to know if we're going to live together eventually." "What did you tell them?" David asked carefully. "That we're figuring things out. That relationships take time to build properly." Elena put down the cloth she was using to wipe tables. "What do you think, David?" "About us?" David considered his answer carefully. "I think we're building something good. Something real, but I don't want to rush it for the wrong reasons." "Neither do I," Elena agreed. "The girls need stability, not confusion. So we continue as we are? Dating? Co-parenting? Seeing where this goes?" Elena nodded. "Yes, and I think that's exactly right for now." David stepped closer and gently took her hand. "I'm happier now than I've ever been, Elena. With you and the girls in my life." "Me too," she said softly. He leaned in and kissed her, a real kiss this time, not the cheek kisses they had exchanged after dates. When they separated, Elena smiled. "We don't need to rush into anything traditional just to check society's boxes," she said, squeezing his hand. "We're writing our own story now, and for the first time I'm actually excited to see how it unfolds." Outside the bakery window, snow began to fall, transforming Cambridge into a winter wonderland. David and Elena stood together, watching the flakes drift down, content in the knowledge that sometimes second chances come in the most unexpected ways. 6 months passed since that snowy December evening at the bakery. Spring turned into summer, bringing warm days and the approaching date of the triplets' 10th birthday in July. Elena's sweet trio had become a neighborhood favorite, with regular customers and a growing reputation for the best Mexican-inspired pastries in Cambridge. David's educational technology division was also thriving. They had signed contracts with 12 school districts to provide math and science software designed to help struggling students. The work allowed David to maintain regular hours and keep his promises to be present for his daughters. On a warm Friday in July, David stood in his kitchen making breakfast. Today marked exactly 1 year since he had stopped to help Elena change a flat tire on Interstate 95. 1 year since he discovered he was a father to 3 girls. 1 year since his life had completely changed. His phone rang. It was Elena. "Good morning," he answered, smiling. "Happy anniversary," she said. "Anniversary? 1 year ago today you stopped on the highway to help a woman with a flat tire," Elena reminded him, "and found 3 surprises in the back seat." "The best surprises of my life," David said. "How could I forget?" "The girls want to have their birthday party at the bakery tomorrow," Elena continued. "They're making a list of friends to invite." "Sounds perfect," David agreed. "Do they need help with anything?" "Actually, Emma asked specifically if you could bring your telescope for the backyard. She wants to show her friends the stars after dark." "Of course. Anything else?" "Just yourself," Elena said softly. "That's all they really want." After hanging up, David finished making breakfast, thinking about how much had changed in 1 year. He and Elena were dating steadily now, taking things slowly but building something genuine. The girls spent 3 nights a week at his house, each with their own space. Sophia had decorated her area with soccer trophies, Olivia had a small keyboard beside her bed, and Emma had bookshelves filled with science books. That evening, David took Emma shopping for birthday party supplies. "I want star-shaped plates," Emma decided as they walked through the party store, "and maybe cups with planets on them." "Perfect for your astronomy theme," David agreed. As they were checking out, Emma looked up at him. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Anything. Are you happy that you found us a year ago?" David knelt down to her level. "Emma, finding you 3 was the best thing that ever happened to me. I missed so many years, but I'm grateful for every day I have with you now." Emma hugged him tightly. "I'm glad you stopped to help Mom with the tire." "Me too," David said, his voice thick with emotion. Later that night, David received an unexpected call from Marcus. They had maintained minimal contact since David sold his majority shares in the company. "David," Marcus began awkwardly, "how are you?" "Good. The educational division is doing well. I heard. That's actually why I'm calling." Marcus cleared his throat. "Your math program for struggling students. The board is impressed with the results. The test scores from the pilot schools are exceptional." "Thank you," David said, surprised by the praise. "I nominated it for the National Innovation in Education Award," Marcus admitted. "The ceremony is next month in New York." David was stunned. "You nominated my program?" "Yes," Marcus sounded uncomfortable with his own generosity. "Look, I still think you're crazy for walking away from billions, but you were right about one thing. That program is helping kids." The next day, David arrived early at the bakery to help with birthday preparations. The space had been decorated with streamers and balloons in the girls' favorite colors: blue for Emma, purple for Olivia, and red for Sophia. Elena came from the kitchen carrying a special birthday cake, 3 layers, each representing one of the girls. "It's beautiful," David said. "Wait until you taste it," Elena smiled. "Each layer is a different flavor, just like our girls." Throughout the morning, regular customers stopped by to wish the girls happy birthday. At noon, the bakery closed to the public for the private party. Soon, classmates and friends arrived, filling the space with laughter and excitement. David watched as his 3 daughters greeted their guests. Emma was showing a science book to her friends. Olivia was explaining the music playlist she had created. Sophia was organizing a soccer-related game for later. Richard and Carmen Martinez arrived carrying gifts. Over the past year, Richard had gradually warmed to David. Today, he extended his hand in genuine friendship. "Happy birthday to our granddaughters," Richard said, "and happy anniversary to you, David." "Anniversary?" David asked. "1 year since you came back into their lives," Richard explained. "It's worth celebrating that too." Carmen handed David a wrapped package. "This is for you." Inside was a photo album. David opened it to find pictures of the girls as babies, toddlers, and young children, all the years he had missed. "Elena thought you should have these," Carmen said gently. David swallowed the lump in his throat. "Thank you. This means everything to me." During the party, David noticed his father, Walter, standing somewhat awkwardly near the door. David went to greet him. "You made it," David said. "Wouldn't miss my granddaughter's birthday," Walter replied, holding 3 identical gift bags. "Where should I put these?" "The gift table is over there," David pointed. "And Dad?" "Thanks for coming." As the afternoon continued, the children played games and ate cake. When the bakery door opened unexpectedly, David was shocked to see Marcus walk in, carrying 3 wrapped packages. "I hope I'm not intruding," Marcus said uncomfortably. "I just wanted to drop these off for the girls." David welcomed him. "Not at all. Come in." Elena introduced Marcus to the girls. "This is your dad's business partner, Mr. Blackwell." "Former partner," Marcus corrected with an awkward smile. "But still a friend, I hope." He handed each girl a gift, 3 identical boxes wrapped in silver paper. "Can we open them now?" Sophia asked. "Of course," Marcus nodded. The girls unwrapped their gifts to find tablet computers, each loaded with the educational software David had developed. "These have your dad's math and science programs," Marcus explained. "He created them to help kids learn better." "You made these, Dad?" Olivia asked, impressed. "My team and I did," David confirmed. "Do you like them?" "They're awesome," Emma exclaimed, already exploring the astronomy section. Marcus pulled David aside. "I'm sorry I was so hard on you last year." "I didn't understand then." "And now?" David asked. Marcus looked around at the happy celebration. "I still think you're crazy, but maybe it's a good kind of crazy." As evening approached and party guests began to leave, David brought out his own gifts for the girls. 3 identical boxes, carefully wrapped. "These are special," he said as the girls gathered around. "Something I promised Emma a long time ago." The girls opened the packages together, revealing 3 high-quality telescopes, each with a nameplate engraved with their names. "One for each of you," David explained, "so we can look at the stars together." "My very own telescope!" Emma squealed with delight. "Mine too?" Olivia asked, surprised to receive the same gift as her science-loving sister. "All 3 of you," David confirmed. "The sky belongs to everyone." After the bakery was cleaned up and the remaining guests had gone home, David set up the telescopes in the small yard behind the bakery. The summer night was clear, perfect for stargazing. The 3 girls took turns looking through their telescopes while David helped them locate different stars and planets. Elena stood nearby, watching with a content smile. "Can you see Saturn's rings?" Emma asked excitedly. "Not quite," David admitted, but we can see Jupiter and 4 of its moons tonight." "I found it," Sophia called out. "The bright one, right?" "That's it," David confirmed, proud of her quick learning. As the girls continued exploring the night sky, Elena joined David. "I never thought we'd be here," she said softly. "1 year ago, when you stopped to help with that flat tire, I was so angry seeing you again." David took her hand. "I can't blame you. I had done nothing to deserve another chance." "But you earned it," Elena said. "Every day since then you've shown up. You've been the father they deserve." They watched as Walter joined the girls, his knowledge of constellations surprising everyone. Richard and Carmen stood nearby, all 3 grandparents now united in their love for the triplets. "Look, Dad," Emma called. "I found the Big Dipper. Great job!" David walked over to look through her telescope. "Now try to find the Little Dipper nearby." As David helped Emma adjust her telescope, he realized how naturally the word Dad now flowed from all 3 girls. How completely his life had transformed from the solitary, work-obsessed existence he had once led. Later, as they prepared to head home, David pulled Elena close. "Thank you," he said simply. "For what? For giving me the chance to know them, for letting me be their father, even when I didn't deserve it." Elena smiled up at him. "They needed you, and maybe you needed them too." David looked at his 3 daughters carefully packing their new telescopes, each in her own way, Sophia efficiently, Olivia neatly, Emma methodically. "I didn't know what I was missing until I almost missed it entirely," he said quietly. As they walked to their cars under the starry sky, David carried Emma's telescope while she chattered excitedly about all the celestial objects she planned to find. Sophia and Olivia walked ahead with Elena, already planning their next stargazing session. The family they had become wasn't conventional. It had formed through chance, choice, and change. But watching his daughters pointing excitedly at stars they had discovered, David knew with absolute certainty that the brilliance above couldn't compare to the joy he had found right here on Earth, in 3 identical faces and the woman who had raised them. 1 year after a flat tire had changed everything, David Reynolds had finally found his true orbit, not around success or money or status, but around 3 10-year-old girls who called him Dad and the mother who had given him a second chance he never deserved but would spend the rest of his life earning. If you enjoyed today's video, I'm sure you'll love the next one. Don't waste time. Just click on the screen